Hi, my name's Tim Ulrich, the graduate coordinator for the Department of Environmental Earth and Geospatial Sciences at North Carolina Central University. Here we're talking, we have a speaker series and we're talking with our former graduate, Richard Madumere. And I'll give a brief intro to Richard. He was a student that came to us from Nigeria. So he emailed me a couple of times and he, he had he had he had emailed me a couple of times about inquiring, and I said, "Come on over, and we'll figure out the rest from there." And you can probably elucidate that on a little bit more. But his work, he worked on a grant with working on rural food deserts. And so he was a major player in that. He co-authored some papers with me and Dr. McGinn and another graduate student, another faculty member over in library sciences. So without any further ado, just let's introduce yourself, Richard, and where are you from, and you know that's about it.
Thank you, Tim. My name is Richard Madumere, and yeah, like Dr. Maroney said, I'm from Nigeria. I've only been here just a little over 5 years. So about that time, I applied for a master's program here at Central in North Carolina, and he did reach out to me, and spoke to me, reached out to me directly, and it kind of like uh, gave me that urge or zeal to want to come over, and it's been great ever since then. Yeah.
So, what's your current position, and try to explain to our future students, current students, and past students what you do on an everyday basis.
So currently I'm a lead analyst with the real estate strategy team at Lowe's Corporate. So Lowe's is a Fortune 40 company, and they are the owners of Lowe's Home Improvement Stores. We have over 1,700 stores in the U.S. and over 500 in facilities in Canada as well. So those are major playing. So what I do, I'm responsible for a lot of things basically, but my main client within the company is the real estate team, of course, from my title, real estate strategy. But yeah, I help the real estate team to, in basic terms, figure out the best place to put a new store, you know. So a lot of modeling goes into that, spatial interactions. Some of them I worked with Dr. Mulrooney on during my master's days, but basically figure out the best place to put a new store, or you know move an existing store, for example, or even close a store, based on a lot of factors. Basically, I can't talk a lot about our strategy now, but so basically I help the real estate team narrow down where to look, and I also run sales estimates on potential locations as well. um, Another thing I do is I'm basically the GIS enterprise administrator. So I deployed and I manage the Esri enterprise suite. So our GIS portal, our GIS server, all of those great stuff. I manage that, and then I have numerous clients within the company where, they have different GIS requests every day. So safe to say, I'm always busy basically. And yeah, I forget to mention, I'm also a part-time PhD student at UNC Charlotte, the Department of Geography. And my research is basically around rural accessibility to factors that improve, quality of life, because there's not a lot of research that goes into the rural areas, mostly in the urban areas. So, and Dr. Mulrooney, of course, introduced me to rural research during my days at Central. So yeah, that's basically what I do in a nutshell. I don't know if I covered.
I think
Um,
so. So, and you already alluded to it. What did you study at NCCU?
Oh, so my master's was in environmental earth and geospatial sciences. The short form of that is DEGS, DEEGS, basically. And my major was in GIS, which is by far, well, DEGS is the best department at Central. Of course, I'm biased.
Okay, and before I ask this question, and this kind of leads to this one, but one of the things about Richard was he was always the first person when I walked in the door. He was always there, and then he was always the last one to leave. And I didn't know this till later, but he'd like drive buses at night and do all these other things that I never knew about. And so Richard had a lot of balls in the air, but the one thing I noticed was his work ethic. And another thing about him, and we talk about this in our classes, things about soft skills. And Richard was always impeccably dressed, always dressed like someone important was going to come in. So those are some of the things I remember. Because my other question here is, what advice would you give to students looking to pursue their master's degree?
Well, thank you for all of that, Tim. That's really, I'm honored. So, one thing I would say is, before you decide to apply, right, just make up your mind to stay committed, and once you agree within yourself, basically, that you're committed to this, just I think you do great, right? So, if you, I say this because a lot of things in grad school is self-paced, right, and you need to have the discipline, to do the work because no one would typically push you to do those things. So, so that's where the commitment comes in, So another thing is, if you're looking to apply, take this as a sign. You should, and there's a lot of free money out there. Just people are giving scholarships. You just need to look and stuff like that. There's a lot of scholarships out there. Families are giving out. So I would advise that just make up your mind and apply to DEGS, of course. And even I have a scholarship that I founded for international African students as well. So there's a lot out there. Just be ready to apply to as many as possible. That's pretty much it.
Yes. In particular, what advice would you give for students pursuing their masters in our program that are specific to the department? What would you advise for students in our program,
Right.
particularly?
Right. Yeah. So, DEGS, like I said, that's the department that birthed my, corporate career. So I would say the department offers a lot of opportunities, GIS, of course, is my favorite because, again, I'm biased. Um, but it's a growing field, like anything location and analytics, and even remote sensing, environmental health, seismology, a lot of different arms of the DEGS department are very, very crucial. And, it's basically a need in the United States at this time, So one additional thing I would say is once you get in, just be prepared to go to conferences, to showcase yourself because, that's one of the opportunities this program gives you. They almost always pay for your trips to most of these conferences where you can showcase, in those conferences you basically have access to, pool of people, talent seekers basically. And as long as you have something, you always go there prepared, of course, with a poster presentation or anything, because one of the funny stories is that I got my first job at ESRI, Environmental Systems Research Institute, from a conference. Dr. Moroney and I went for that conference. It's called the CDAG conference, where I presented, and I got an offer for an internship, which later turned into a job, that basically they gave me the offer letter before I even graduated. For after the startup date was after my graduation. So I'd say conferences, of course, you can never go wrong with those.
Yeah, and I remember, I'll interject. Richard was really proactive about going to conferences. I remember he went to Kansas City National Society for Black Engineers, and I think they gave him a
Right.
scholarship as well. But we figured out the money situation, and we funded him for a few days out there, and we went to CDAG. We went to the North Carolina Geographical Society meeting as well.
Right.
There were a lot of opportunities that we were able to fund. In terms of as a member of the workforce, what are some important technical skills that you would need to succeed?
Technical, yes, very, very important. I'd say just be hands-on in those GIS classes, and even the remote sensing classes, just being proficient with those tools would always get you in the door when it comes to corporate America, at least. Also any scripting language, any scripting language you can learn will always serve you well. Python, JavaScript, just be proactive, because as long as you can show that you have any of those skills, you definitely can get into all those um, roles like GIS technician, all of that stuff. At least I'm speaking from my experience, basically. And if you have the opportunity, learn WebGIS. I know that WebGIS is also being introduced by Dr. Mulrooney. I think you're doing that as well. So WebGIS definitely, because most of these organizations are also, operating on the WebGIS level, because as much as you know how to do the analysis for yourself, you need to be able to share it with an organization. So organizational level, you need to start thinking about WebGIS as well. And there's a lot of uh, freedom with you can take some of those classes at Esri training page. I think esri.com/training. You can do that as self-paced, and that gives you an edge over a lot of people applying. But like I said, DEGS will give you what you need, basically,
Yeah.
and I'm saying that from experience.
And for our students out there, we have access to the Esri training. So contact me or any of the other faculty about getting to access the training. I do the trainings all the time for ArcGIS Online, for some scripting, for some metadata, and I just go and I do the hands-on exercise just so I can get used to it, especially with the new ArcGIS Pro. As a member of the workforce, what are some important soft skills that you would need to succeed?
Mm, Soft skills. So I'd say you should always what's worked for me. Now, I think you should develop the habit to try to get answers first before asking questions. Google is your friend. Dr. Mulrooney, you would always tell me during my days, keep clicking until you figure it out. That really helped me in my transition into corporate America. So I say think of it this way. People always want to have someone on their team who even if they don't know stuff, they want to they can get answers. I'd rather have someone on my team who I can trust to get answers for me than someone who just knows stuff. Because someone who is resourceful is always in fact, one of my mantras is always try not to say I don't know in a corporate setting, or instead you can replace that with saying, let me do some research and get back to you. Well, it also depends on who's asking, but let me do some research and get back to you is always showing a level of responsibility that you can be resourceful when needed to be, because no one expects you really to know everything. You just be resourceful and be willing to take a stab at any situation, basically, even if you don't get it right. And of course, I'd say soft skills, or skills like firm handshake and looking people in the eye and stuff like that. Maybe cliche, but it really speaks to your presence as an individual in a workplace. So that's another thing. Confidence. In dealing with people, I'd say. And I can share some of the articles that I wrote during my time at Esri, interviewing company like executives and people uh, in higher managerial positions on what the subtle expectations um, for potential people who can be on their team and stuff like that. I can share that with Dr. Mulroney, and you can share with the class if you need to.
Oh, that'd be great.
I think I may have shared it with you before.
Was that you might have, yeah.
Yeah.
At what point in time did you have an aha moment in GIS where you said, "This is what I want to do. This is what I want to make my life's work out of"?
Mm, well, one thing I say is it's unfortunate that a lot of scholars in geography, geosciences, especially in GIS, almost always have unconventional routes to the major. And I feel like largely because we weren't exposed to it early enough in our life. I don't know how it is in the school system, but like you're not really always exposed to GIS or geography very early. So, but for me, I got interested in my undergrad years. My major during my undergrad was I was in civil engineering, of course, but my major was water resources engineering, and my thesis was studying underground or groundwater contaminations, and and you know basically how the contamination flows in the eastern part of Nigeria. So just a long story short, I use some GIS techniques, interpolation precisely, to figure out some of the contaminant concentrations, and finally compared that with WHO standards for drinking water. So during those processes of working with GIS and figuring out, the best way to approach the thesis, that's kind of where I got exposed to GIS, and it kind of stood out to me as a field that, not a lot of people knew about, and just my quest to want to, get to know new things, that's kind of where I started getting into it and applying for it, and that's pretty much where you know, Dr. Mulrooney reached out to me, emailed me back, and saying he would like to work with me, and the rest was basically history.
Good.
So.
Cool. Any other things you want to add to prospective students, current students about your experiences?
So I guess we've said a lot today, but uh, it's a world of endless possibilities, right? And if you're still by now trying to make up your mind, just take this as a sign, just go ahead and apply to DEGS at NCCU, of course. But yeah, it's a world of endless possibilities out there, and it's waiting for you, basically. Just take that step.
All right, cool. Well, that's about a couple other follow-up comments. In my classes, I've talked about the idea of data-driven decision making, and I think Richard is a prime example of utilizing data to make decisions. And I think in his thesis, we were doing Excel programming at one point in time, doing VBA and matrix analysis. So a lot of times your data isn't just going to be pointing and clicking. It's going to be utilizing data in a lot of different forms. So downloading CSVs and linking them to GIS data, and
Exactly.
working with space.
Right. And you have to think big picture and then start think like, what am I trying to achieve? What story is this data? What story, will the data tell and stuff like that. So there's, always different analysis that would work for, what you're doing. And like I said before, there's nothing there's no hitch that you would get to in GIS that hasn't been posted online. Everyone has passed through whatever it is that you may, any hitch you may pass through in GIS. So just Google, there's always something that could point you in the right direction, a way to approach a situation, and, just think critically on how you want to what you want to arrive at, basically.
Okay, cool. Well, that's about it for today. Wanted to thank you very much, and we should be good to go. And NCCU students, please stay tuned for future videos of this nature.